The recent overhaul of ARK Survival Evolved on the Switch gave us a much better looking and performing game, and the upgrade is giving us all the DLC. But what we didn't realize or see coming, that we would be getting a brand new game in the ARK series that is exclusive to the Switch. One built for kids that is not a Minecraft game, it is not a survival game, it's an adventure educational game to teach kids about dinosaurs? Well, let's dive in and talk about it. Here is my review of ARK Dinosaur Discovery for the Nintendo Switch. When it comes to story, you play as a child in a simulation on your way to your new home, learning about the creatures that lived on your original home, a planet called Earth. Guided by the H-probe, you witness many prehistoric animals and learn about them as a part of an educational program before you get to your new home. Now, I think this sets up what you do pretty alright, but the setup itself does have a bit of a hint and tie to the overall timeline and lore of the ARK franchise. I won't say anything more as it's in major spoiler territory, but the moment I heard the intro, it made a lot of sense with where the series is going with ARK 2. When it comes to gameplay, this is a 3D adventure educational game. As you play, you'll navigate a large 3D island, looking for dinosaurs to fill out your field guide with as you're taught about each one that you find. Now the gameplay loop here is very simple, so simple a child can do it, literally. When you go into the game, you choose a character from presets of both male and female explorers, from people in exploration gear to being in one of those comical T-Rex Halloween costumes. Once you're on the island, you explore in a third-person mode where there are dinosaurs and collectibles around for you to find. There's no combat here, no survival elements, no obelisk bosses, you simply walk around and find things. Walk into a new dinosaur and you gain access to their guidebook where the probe tells you about the dinosaur with basic facts like size, where it lived, and where it was found. And this is really where the kids' educational side kicks in. The guidebooks look like kids' picture books, and even the facts they give you seem very catered to children, like comparing the weight of a Diplodocus to 20 hippos and not a strict weight value. It all seems very child-oriented. Though interestingly enough, it shows just how off-scale everything is in ARK proper. The information here is more geared to the fossil record and not what is shown in-game. Many of the size descriptions in the books don't match up at all with the size of the in-game models. So outside of finding dinosaurs, what is there to do? Not a whole lot. Each dinosaur fills out a book in your catalog of about 64 different species, and each one will have a basic side quest you can do to unlock riding them with a saddle. These are typically just walk a little bit away from them to find an egg, friend, or baby and lead them back. There are also 1,000 random collectibles to find across the game. The collectibles don't really do anything, they're just there for something you can find. And once you find or do something, if you wait just a few seconds, a new waypoint will show up pointing you to the next dinosaur or collectible. You repeat this process until you have every dinosaur in that particular era, and a gate opens to a new part of the island where you tackle the next era. Now, I do think it's fun to be able to unlock and ride all of the different animals, especially since you can ride underwater animals like the plesiosaur. But I'll admit that this is an extremely basic game. You go find something and wait for the next waypoint to go find something else, and just do that over and over again until you find everything. But I guess that's kind of the point, because this game was clearly made for not only children, but very young children. But that also raises a question. Who exactly was this game made for? Kids who like dinosaurs? It doesn't look that colorful and kid-friendly, and the intro is very big on ARK lore. The only guess I can make is that these are for kids whose parents play ARK and they want to play something too. Something that isn't a super extreme, literally everything wants to kill you all the time survival game. But even as basic and for kids as it is, there is something to be said about repetition. There are only 64 dinosaurs and 1,000 collectibles, so almost all of your auto waypoints are just going to be collectibles one after another after another. I found myself ignoring most of these on a hunt for new species. And the game is a bit repetitive in story as well. That intro with the H-bot you have to watch every time you start the game, whether you're starting fresh or continuing a save file. And unfortunately, there aren't really that many recorded lines for the different things you do, so the H-bot is going to say the same thing over and over again without any variety. But let's go into content and length, which there is a decent amount of here. The game costs $10 or comes free with the Ultimate Survivor Edition on Switch, and you can fill out the Dinosaur guidebook for all 64 in around 5 to 6 hours. Longer if you take the time to look for other collectibles. Next up, controls. This game was meant to be played with a single Joy-Con, which is weird because it doesn't feature any sort of couch co-op play. But when you first start, the default control scheme feels really stiff and wonky. You have very tank-like controls where you have to almost stop to turn and move around. Thankfully, you can go into settings on the main menu and activate more modern controls to be able to move the camera with the right stick and trigger buttons. It still feels a little wonky and stiff, especially when you're riding on animals, but it's a little better. Now for presentation. I think it looks good visually. There is an aspect of cell shading at play here to make some of the models look pretty smooth, though the environment looks like it was taken right out of the island from Survival Evolved. Now the issues here are more performance based. The frame rate, much like the full game, is not that stable. You'll get a lot of small dropped frames in the 20s, though nothing too extreme. And unlike the full game, Dino Discovery likes to crash when you get new dinosaur guidebooks. This happened to me about a dozen times across discovering all the dinosaurs, where I would get a new book, read it, and the game would crash when I try to close it. It is pretty smart about auto-saving, so I never lost progress, but it was annoying to have to reboot the game. Now as far as battery life goes, it's pretty much the same engine as ARK proper. All of the battery tests I did for Dino Discovery were exactly the same as with ARK, all the way down to the minute. So we're going to be looking at about 2 to 3 hours on the original and light models and 4 to 5 hours on the V2 and OLED models. Now, in conclusion, ARK Dinosaur Discovery is a very strange and out-of-nowhere game in the ARK franchise, showcasing a kid-friendly basic adventure game more on education than surviving. Now on the downside, the game is a bit repetitive with the dino collectible ratio even as an educational game, and it's got some issues with wonky controls, frame drops, and frequent crashing. But if you like ARK and your child wants to play something like it, it's an interesting little game that ironically gives you much more accurate dino info than what ARK actually shows in-game. Reviews to go rates ARK Dinosaur Discovery for the Nintendo Switch a 6.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.